All right. Good morning, everyone. So I have got this answer from Sunny. It's a good answer. Okay, it's not a bad answer, but where I find the problem, one is sentence formation. Okay, you have to take care of the grammar as well as the structure of the sentence. Yeah, that's not a big thing to do. It's easy. Second is leave the university mode. For example, your introductory part is good, but the same is getting repeated in the conclusion part. Not needed. Two statements are enough, not a paragraph, right? Because 150, 250 words not going to help you. In the way forward, you can add 3 more points, like more budgetary allocation, proper allocation of funds, ensuring that there is no corruption in the allocation of funds, effective policy implementation, need more data. One more thing that can be done is that time-bound studies, National Commission for Scheduled Tribe is entrusted with this task of time-bound studies, research and inquiry. So we can have that. So way forward is those 7 points. Same is in the second answer, but in comparison to 2 answers, the second answer is far better. Yet I will give you 5 out of 10 in both. Write it again, show it to me, try for 7 out of 10. But I think I gave 3 questions. हैं? कोई बात नहीं, कल चाहिए, मतलब जब मैं आपसे नेक्स्ट मिलूंगा ना, I think I will meet you all on Sunday perhaps. Okay, so on Sunday I want this question. Online आप लोगों ने भी अगर कर दिया है तो please send me. We'll start. Let's start. I don't want to waste any time. Okay. So today we are going to discuss the rights of person with disabilities. When I was teaching this topic in the Hindi medium, a direct question came from the class. All right. So I was discussing this topic. We were explaining and understanding, and a direct question was asked by the UPSC in the main examination. So I am hoping, if not this year, but maybe next year also, or perhaps in your personality test, a question could be asked from this topic as well. Now, when you think about the question of rights of persons with disabilities, now I think we have reached the level. Where are your assignment questions, homework? फटाफट लाओ, जो लिख के लाया है अभी चेक कर दूंगा खट से. I got answer of Sunny checked like this. चलो रिंकी दो इधर. Very good. So Sunny, Rinky's definition of exploitation is better than yours. Your first statement should come after this. तो अभी तुम लोगों को क्या करना है, एक दूसरे का टेप लेना है, ठीक है? अभी क्या हो, ये तुम भी यूज कर लो, तुम भी यूज कर लो, और सनी का जो फर्स्ट लाइन है वो इसके बाद जोड़ दो, ठीक है? या सेम. ओके. वेरी गुड. वेयर इज योर नेम ऑन इट? अच्छा, अंजलि. आगे लिखो ना, इसे में तो बवाल हो जाएगा. पीछे का पेज कोई मान लो फाड़ दे, हैं? अच्छा. सो गुड 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 गुड, ठीक है. या वेयर इज द क्रिटिकल एग्जामिनेशन? ये लिखा है क्रिटिकली एग्जामिन. ये वाला पॉइंट तो रहा ही नहीं, ये तो सिर्फ आ गया कि संविधान में क्या क्या, व्हाट इज देयर इन द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. सो क्रिटिकल एग्जामिन में क्या लिखोगे? हाउ द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन हैज इलैबोरेटेड ऑन दीज राइट्स. ओके, ये सनी के आंसर से ले लो, ये उसमें मिल जाएगा. ओके, सेकंड क्वेश्चन. गुड, सेम. ये सेकंड क्वेश्चन में सेकंड जो ये वाला पैराग्राफ है, रिंकी, ये कहाँ से लिखा है? खुद से सोच के लिखा है या कहीं और से लिखा है? सोच के लिखा है. वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड, ठीक है. डन. परफेक्ट, परफेक्ट. सेकंड आंसर इज परफेक्ट. थर्ड आंसर. थर्ड आंसर का स्ट्रक्चर जो है प्रेजेंटेशन वाला, दैट इज नॉट गुड. इतने बड़े पैराग्राफ्स नहीं चाहिए. आई नीड पॉइंटर्स, ठीक है? सो यहां पे आपको 3-3 पॉइंट्स निकाल देना है. कंटेंट इज नीरजा चौधरी वाला केस और पीयूडीआर वाला केस मेंशन कर दो. लर्निंग एड में है तो थर्ड आंसर भी परफेक्ट हो जाएगा. 6 out of 10. लो अंजलि अंजलि अंजलि, अब आपका है। ओके ठीक है। ऑलराइट, डन 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 डन। एग्जामिनेशन थोड़ा और करना है। सेकंड क्वेश्चन 2 ही किया है, तीसरा नहीं है। वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड, वंडरफुल, वेरी गुड, वेरी गुड, परफेक्ट, गुड आंसर, 6 आउट ऑफ 10। थर्ड वाला, हाँ थर्ड वाला सबमिट करना है कल। सो गुड आंसर। अब आप लोगों को क्या करना है, एक दूसरे के आंसर्स को पढ़ना है, ठीक है। सो दिस हैपन्स, इट्स अ कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम, नो डाउट अबाउट इट, राइट, बट योर कॉम्पिटिशन शुड बी विद ईच अदर एज वेल। आप लोग आपस में भी कॉम्पीट करो, बट यू आर ऑल्सो अ क्लास, है ना। सो यू हैव टू कॉम्पीट एज अ क्लास एज वेल। आपका आंसर बाकियों से भी अच्छा होना चाहिए। इसके लिए क्या करना है, ऑनलाइन भी आंसर्स बहुत सारे अवेलेबल हैं, एड में बहुत सारा इन्फॉर्मेशन है, एक साथ करो कोशिश और बेहतर आंसर लिखने की कोशिश करो, ठीक है। मेरे पास अभी सपना का नहीं आया है, शादाब का नहीं आया है, कशिश का आंसर नहीं है। सो फाइन, आई वांट देयर आंसर्स एज वेल। ठीक है, चलो नाउ लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द राइट ऑफ पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटीज। देखो ऐसे होता है, फट से करके दिया, फट से मैंने चेक कर दिया। इसी ये फायदा होता है छोटा क्लास का, तुरंत आप आंसर भी चेक कर देते हैं, तुरंत आपको समझ भी आ जाता है। एंड when you have a small class, I personally prefer small class. Like I got this good insight in my masters. One of our class I only had 2 students, so professor and we two, हम दो धुरंधर कहलाते थे उस डिपार्टमेंट में कि यही दोनों इनसे पढ़ सकते हैं। एंड दैट क्लास वाज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट क्लासेस। आई थिंक आई लर्न द मोस्ट इन दैट क्लास। सो यू ऑल्सो हैव एन अपॉर्चुनिटी, ट्राई टू लर्न, ट्राई टू प्रिपेयर वेल and go with a good question and answer in the examination. So I was discussing this with Sunny when you people have not come, that UPSC has asked a question on rights of person with disabilities. And interesting fact is that it has been asking a question. So for example, it's not just last year. Few years back they asked a question, right? So if not in the main examination, the question could come in the pre-examination. If not in the pre and main, the question could be posed in the personality test. So we should be aware about it. Or let's say essay. What about there is an essay question on disability? What about there is an essay question on, let's say, social justice? So there also you can mention the issue of disabled people in the India as well as around the world. The interesting aspect as far as the right of disability is concerned, the right of person with disability is concerned, is that India is also a signatory to the United Nations Convention on the Right of Person with Disabilities. And you will learn this in the class today, that if you are a signatory to such a convention, it is mandatory or obligatory on part of the state parties who have signed to frame laws according to the convention, right? More than that, if you recall my class on Article 13, in which I discussed that if the Supreme Court has to declare some law as constitutional or unconstitutional, the Supreme Court will rely on laws in India, majorly the Indian Constitution, but the Supreme Court will also take help of the international conventions to which India is a signatory. So if India has signed this document by the UN, it is of course going to affect the way Article 13 is interpreted in the Indian polity. That's also this issue of rights of person with disability becomes important. Now the first thing, or the first stepping stone to understand this topic, is you have to make a distinction between this concept called handicap, one side handicap, and then something called disability. All right. Sometimes people also add one more word, which is impairment. ठीक है, तीसरा word क्या जोड़ देते हैं? Impairment. Now often what happens, if you think about the Hindi term for disability, it's विकलांग, है ना? हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं इसको? विकलांग. Nowadays दिव्यांगजन, right? The government has announced. So if you visit the Ministry of Social Justice and Environment, Social Justice and Empowerment, and in that ministry, if you look at the department which is responsible for furthering the interest of disabled population, they are mentioning it disabled people bracket में दिव्यांग. But the term Viklang is actually the English version or Hindi version is handicap. So handicap is Viklang. Whereas disability, people often use this term Viklang again, but that is not a good way to do it. Perhaps a better term is Aksham. Okay, what is the term? Aksham. One is Saksham, able, the other is Aksham. So when you think from this perspective, perhaps there is a difference between these three words, and why we are not referring to the term like rights of the person with handicap or rights of handicapped person. We are not mentioning that. We are mentioning right of person with disability. Now if you think about the handicap, what are the two words emerging? One is cap and one is hand. दिख रहा है इसके अंदर ये तुम लोगों को एक टोपी दिख रहा होगा, है कि नहीं? And the second word is hand. So think like this, there is a cap. So let's say like ऐसे कुछ होता है ना cap आपका, right? And then there is a hand, है ना, आपका एक हाथ है. So perhaps this word has emerged etymologically from this medieval notion of begging. Begging कैसे होता था पहले, है ना? टोपी ऐसे आपने उतारा and give me something, थोड़े सिक्के दे दो. Now if you start thinking from this perspective and start using this word for the disabled population, it's derogatory, isn't it? That you are actually comparing their condition with beggars. Who is a beggar? A beggar is a person who is not able to survive by himself or herself. A beggar is dependent upon other people's charity or their kind-heartedness for survival, isn't it? रोड पे खड़े होंगे, है ना? अगर आप पुराना फिल्म देखो, if you remember old movies, फलाने के नाम पे दे दे बाबा, हाँ, this kind of statement is there in the movies. So that is why this consciousness has emerged that we should not use this term for disabled population. Handicap is a derogatory term. It should not be used for the disabled population. So there is a difference. Now there is one more difference, and I have already explained this in your learning aid. Now there is a possibility that you could be handicapped. Let's say you have some kind of physical problem in the body, but you will not be disabled. Or in other words, or vice versa, you could be completely abled, yet you will remain handicapped because of certain circumstances. So think like an example. Suppose you are all abled by your body. You are not physically facing not any kind of ailment. You are perfectly fit and able. You have two hands, you have two legs, etc., etc. And you need to cross a river, but there is no boat, the current is very high, it's fast, you don't know how to swim, and there is no way you can cross the river except swimming. Can you swim then? You cannot. So even though your body was physically perfect and fit, you became handicapped because of certain external factors. You are not able to work, or you became, if you use it as a synonym, you became disabled because of external factors. This is the problem with the way we are understanding disability in the larger context of world. So this distinction must be maintained. Handicap is not equal to disability. Disability is not equal to handicap. And perhaps disability has less to do with the physical ailments in the body or the mind. Disability has more to do with the social factors. Alright. So there is a theory that perhaps disability is not a natural construct. Indeed, disability is a social construct, or there is a social construction of disability as far as the person who is facing physical or mental ailment in the body is concerned. ये समझ में आई इतनी बात? Alright? Okay. Now let's look at the way some people have tried to define this concept. So we will go through the definition by WHO, we will go through the definition by United Nations and some other disabled activists, how they have defined it. So if you look at the learning aid page number 1, you will find that as far as the National Human Rights Commission, so when I was researching for your lecture, this is perhaps the best way to start. NHRC, again, it's part of the government apparatus, right? Even though not strictly executive apparatus, but it is part of the nation, of the state apparatus, and how NHRC has defined it. So disability is often defined as the malfunctioning, disturbance or loss in the normal functioning of the physical, mental or psychological processes. So number one thing is that whenever we talk about disability, we are referring to some kind of malfunctioning. Malfunctioning समझते हैं आप लोग? Often your computer or phone malfunctions. इसका meaning क्या होता है? It's not functioning as it is supposed to do, right? Malfunctioning. Or there is another term known as there could be some kind of disturbance, right? or we can have some more words. Let's say there is some kind of ailment, है ना? There is some kind of impairment. Let's bring all these words together, and this all is coming in the idea of the normal functioning, right? The normal functioning, let's say mental, psychological, physical, or let's say body, etc., etc. This is how the NHRC reports begins about articulating disability, and then they further argue that not only this is leading to this bad way in which or malfunctioning of the body or the mind, it also becomes a hurdle when that person who is facing these problems wants to adjust in the society or wants to participate in the society. So whenever you have this kind of malfunctioning, disturbance or ailment, it becomes a hurdle. ये क्या काम करता है? It acts as a hurdle. And in one word, if you are writing for the main examination, it acts as a hurdle in their functioning or in their equal participation in the community. So whenever a person who is disabled because of any such factors, he is not able to participate equally in the community, which means that all those articles which are available to other individuals on an equal ground, even though they are also available to the disabled person, yet because of their physical, mental and psychological condition, they are not able to fully participate as equal members in the political community. Is this clear? Any doubts so far? All right. Turn to page number 2 of the learning aid. Now when you turn to page number 2 of the learning aid, the first thing you will find is how WHO has tried to define disability, right? World Health Organization, remember? And we are going back to the year of 1976. So in 1976, WHO actually tried to explain disability, and they came with 3 concepts. First concept, as you can see, it's already bold in your learning aid, is impairment. है ना? पहला concept क्या दिख रहा है? Impairment, right? What is the second concept? बताओ जोर से जोर लो. Disability. And what is the third one? Handicap. तो आपके पास ये 3 terms आ गए अलग अलग. Now see how they are defining it. When you see how they have defined impairment, they mention something like this. Impairment or abnormality. ठीक है, पहला word क्या आ जाता है? Whenever you talk about impairment, we are actually referring to abnormality, and definitely in the psychological or physical or any other way of structuring and functioning of the human body. I have referred to the term called anatomical. Do you understand what is anatomical or anatomy? The anatomy of the body. So just keep it like simple. So this, look at this marker. It has a specific function to perform. Now let's imagine the tip of the marker is broken. Now this is some kind of impairment. Okay, simple example. Now look at how they are defining disability. They are defining disability as any restriction or reduction as a result of impairment of the ability to perform an activity in the manner that is considered as normal for a human being. Now because of this impairment, this is leading to disability as far as WHO is concerned. Disability here becomes some kind of reduction, right, in performance. In one word, it is a reduction in performance. So performing any work which is considered as natural for a human being. Let's take an example here. Suppose a person has an impairment in the mind. Let's say the person's mind is not developed as it should be developed of the same age group of some other human being. Suppose you are 20-year-old. A 20-year-old individual is considered fit for reading. Okay. Now because of, let's say, low vision, or let's say because their mind is slow, in double inverted comma, they are not able to read in the manner in which you all can read. So that impairment is leading to reduction in the capacity, right? So disability is not impairment of the body. Disability here becomes reduction in the capacity to perform a function which is considered as normal for another human being, right? यही मतलब बनेगा ना? So reduction in the capacity or ability to perform a function which is considered as normal for another human being. And see how they are defining handicap then. The handicap becomes something like this. Is a disadvantage to a person that results from an impairment or disability that prevents the fulfillment of a role considered normal for that person. Now, when you think about handicap, it could be result of both impairment or disability, and handicap turns out to be a some kind of disadvantage, right? So this is how the WHO tried to define disability, and it tried to maintain some distinction between impairment, disability and handicap. But the problem with this definition is, again, it is too much focused on medical terminologies, right? So even though WHO is trying to bring in social factors, but they are saying that disability is a result of reduction, disability is reduction which is result of impairment. They are saying handicap is a disadvantage which is a result of disability and impairment. They are leaving everything to the at the level of individual. They are leaving everything at the level of individual's body, individual's mind, individual's development. There is no recognition of the social factor in defining disability. Now, even though WHO after 1976 indeed tried to reform its definition, but they largely operate within the medical framework. ठीक है? ये किस में operate करते हैं? They operate within the medical framework. And the problem with medical framework is that if you think something as a medical problem, you will only look for medical solution, isn't it? अगर कोई प्रॉब्लम आपको मेडिकल नजर आ रही है, थिंक अबाउट कोविड पैंडेमिक, है ना? इफ यू थिंक अबाउट इट जस्ट एज अ मेडिकल प्रॉब्लम, सो ओनली मेडिकल सॉल्यूशन इज वैक्सीनेशन, isn't it? But now think like this, what about laborers, the laborers who were forced to migrate on themselves, है ना, on their own. They were not provided with enough facilities which we had, because we are born at a very good stage of social lottery, you know? We were at least upper middle class or middle class. But the poor laborers, they actually used trains or buses, they went on their own, and news came that they are walking, you know? They are walking to reach their villages, right? So if India also took the same stand and looked at pandemic just as a medical question, they would never have thought about taking care of social considerations. That is the problem with WHO. When you only fulfill a medical framework, you only look for a medical solution, or you look at the problem only from the perspective of medical, or let's say science, and the social factors or the legal factors or the regime, they are not taken into account. So imagine something like this. What about conditions which are social? What about conditions which are political? What about conditions which are administrative? And or let's say, what about conditions which are economic? What about there is some connection between disability and community basis? What about there is a connection between gender and disability? Now, if you come from this perspective, a mere emphasis on the medical impairment or disability or handicap is not enough. That is why when people think from the perspective of other ways, on which other vantage points, they try to separate themselves from the WHO definition. And it is not surprising. It's World Health Organization. And it's a World Health Organization, so that they are definitely going to have a medical definition. But here when you think about UPSC and your examination and the way law has been framed in India, you cannot rely on this framework. Rather, you have to think about disability not as a medical issue, but more as a rights issue. ठीक है? आप इसे कैसे समझेंगे? Not as a medical issue, but more as a rights issue. Or let's say a larger framework, human right. You understand what is human right? Anybody in class? What is human right? Anybody? Human rights पता है क्या होता है? How to understand it? No? No? Human right नहीं पता है? See, whenever you think about human rights are those rights that are available to every human being because they are a human. So suppose you are born with certain rights. Those rights are known as human rights. The idea of human rights has developed over time. Initially, we had the idea of natural rights. And I think I have discussed this in the class as well. Natural rights refers to rights of life, liberty and possession. Sometimes people call it property, but actually the term used by John Locke is possession. When you possess something out of your labor, hard work labor, then you possess something. And John Locke said that these rights are God given. है ना, हमें कौन जन्म देता है? भगवान देता है. ठीक है, आप दुनिया में कैसे आते हो? बिकॉज ऑफ भगवान. सो गॉड इज गिविंग यू लाइफ, God has granted you liberty, and God has given you this capacity to perform labor, and by performing that labor you possess something. है ना, अभी मान लो बाम का सीजन आने वाला है, ठीक है, you enter a orchard of mangoes, हाँ, that is a free mango tree, nobody has claim over it, and then you look at a mango, हाँ, पीला पीला दिख रहा है तुमको, and you are like, let me just get this mango, ये आम मुझे खाना है, but the mango is high up in the branch of the tree, so you try to climb, you cannot do that, है ना, तुम्हारा हाइट छोटा पड़ जा रहा है, mango is 12 feet tall, हाँ, उसके ऊपर है वो, so now what will you do? You will think about a stone, के पत्थर मार के तोड़ दूं, है ना, so you are now using your labor to throw a stone, but then you come to know नहीं, mango could get hurt, तो मेरा तो आम खाना फेल हो जाएगा, then you try to get some big long stick, है ना, you take out that, let's suppose you find a stick, and then you say, okay, अब इस डंडे से I will get this mango, and then now you use that stick and you take out the mango from the tree. Now you have applied your labor, that mango becomes your property. This is John Locke. John Locke is saying that when you perform labor, you possess something. But the problem is, John Locke's idea was coming from the idea of God-given rights, and we are living in a secular world. Secularism cannot have this good relationship with God, na? Especially as far as law is concerned. So secularism will claim, no, have a different theory. So idea of secularism or secularization process said, these rights are not God-given. These rights are not natural because they are God-given. These rights are natural because these are human rights. Since we are born, we are humans, humans deserve this right. And then the most famous document is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations. That declaration came after the Second World War. And as you all know, perhaps by now, that Second World War, the history of Second World War is full of brutality. It is full of denial of rights to a certain section of the population, especially known as Jews in Germany. So there the idea developed. And when you have something like a human right, it is bestowed upon you. It's your entitlement, it's your due, it's your claim. And then there are different categories of human rights: political human rights, economic human rights, socio-cultural human rights, gender-based human rights, indigenous community-based human rights, traditional human rights. Okay? These are different way, group rights, etc., etc. So human rights clear? Huh? Can we move forward? So whenever you come across, by the way, UPSC has asked a question from this part as well in the pre-examination. UPSC asked a question, which of the following of the Indian Constitution contains rights that are also present in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Okay? And they gave certain examples: fundamental rights, DPSP, some other two examples. The answer was both fundamental rights and DPSP. So if there is any question like this, always remember, दोनों को सही करके आना है. This is the trick. उसके ऊपर अलग से आधा घंटा पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. एक लाइन में क्या बोलते हैं उसको याद कर लो. स्मरण समझते हो? Remember it. DPSP and fundamental rights contain rights which are also part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, maintained and passed by the United Nations. ठीक है, इतना बात समझ में आ गया? Let's move forward. Now if you turn to page number 3 of your learning aid, you will find that we also have a law here. So, Persons with Disability, Equal Opportunities Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act 1995. And this law contains certain ideas about disability, how to define disability, and see what they are defining. The first category of disability is if a person is facing some kind of blindness. ठीक है, दिखा? If the person is facing some kind of blindness, and then it also includes a category called low vision, right? Now I think for your perspective you don't need to mug up these things in detail. What you have to understand is the just detailing of the terms that could give somebody an advantage to be called as a disabled person in the polity and administrative apparatus of the country. Think about the second one, leprosy cured. Leprosy समझते हैं आप लोग? Anybody? Leprosy? Huh? Huh? But what is it? Leprosy is a specific. Yes. So yeah, people could be cured as well. But see, if somebody is facing leprosy, of course that person is disabled. But leprosy cured means that even after treatment, the person has not been able to perform as a normal human being. All right, and he's facing some kind of difficulties in feeling sensations around the body as well. And then if you read carefully, see how it is freed, but with loss of sensation in the hands or feet, and loss of sensation in the eye and the eyelid. Eyelid समझते हो? Eyelids, ये तुम्हारी पलकें वगैरह जो होता है ना, उस समय समझो, ठीक है? Eyelids or majorly this part. So your body is not functioning properly. Precisely this is the concept here. Third is hearing impairment, है ना? कोई बहरा हो, ठीक है? And again, a person could use some kind of aid, but that doesn't mean that the person is not disabled. Then locomotor impairment, mental retardation, and mental illness. So locomotion is of course about movement of the body, okay? It's about movement of the body. You could have just one leg, or perhaps you're not born with any leg. Then you have mental retardedness, and the last one option here is mental illness. Perhaps you must have a difference between mental retardedness and mental illness. I will discuss this later, but this is how one of the law has tried to define disability. Okay? So suppose now UPSC asks you a question in the pre-examination. Which of the following are considered as categories of a person who is facing disability? So what is the answer? One is blindness, also include low vision. The second is leprosy cured. Third is hearing impairment. Fourth is locomotor impairment. Fifth is mental retardedness, and sixth is mental illness. ये बात समझ में आ गया? All right. And similarly, the United Nations Convention on Person with Disability, to which India is also a signatory, has also tried to define disability in these ways. And they have also not differentiated from the way the law is defining it, or the way WHO is defining it, or perhaps the human rights model is defining it. So by the time we reach the Convention on Person with Disability, which is CPRD, Rights of Disability Persons, CPRD, by that time they have tried to inculcate the medical outlook as well as the rights-based approach, and they both have been amalgamated together to define how a disabled person actually feels, what kind of problems are faced by a disabled person, and how to provide them with certain additional benefits or rights so that they are able to participate on full and equal terms in comparison to normal human beings in the political community. Is this clear? All right, write a practice question. Right? Question number 1. What do you understand by the term disability? What do you understand by the term disability? Question mark. In what manner international institutions or national law, in what manner the international institutions or national law has defined disability? Question mark, elaborate. Question mark, elaborate. Write the first point. Disability is often defined as the malfunctioning, comma, disturbance, or loss, within bracket, often permanent, but could be temporary as well, bracket close, in the normal functioning of physical, mental, and psychological processes of a human being, full stop. Continue in the same statement. It acts as the hurdle in their active and full participation in the community life, full stop. Right? Second point. WHO Second point, WHO provides a three-dimensional understanding of disability. WHO provides a three-dimensional understanding of disability by differentiating between impairment, comma, disability, and handicap, disability and handicap. Full stop. Continue the same point. For WHO, comma, impairment is abnormality in the functioning of human body. Impairment is abnormality in the functioning of human body or structure, comma, disability is any restriction or reduction, which is result of impairment, whereas handicap is the disadvantage to the person, resulting from both disability and impairment, full stop. Right, next point. The persons with disabilities within bracket equal opportunities, comma, protection of rights, and full participation, bracket close, Act, 1995, bracket close, Act, 1995 defines disability from medical lens, like WHO, and it means a person facing blindness, comma, low vision, comma, leprosy cured, comma, hearing impairment, comma, locomotor impairment, comma, mental retardness, and mental illness, full stop. Write the final statement in this point. It should not be less than 40%. As per the act. And write the last point. For United Nations Convention on Rights of Person with Disabilities, comma, it is a result of environmental constraint, as well as impairment. And write the last point. I like a analytical statement. Majority of definitions have been framed from medical perspective, and they lack the rights based or social understanding of disability. They lack the rights based or social understanding of disability. Now give a page break. Give a page break and write a subheading. Is disability a social construct? Write a subheading. Is disability a social construct? ठीक है, एक सेकेंड जो आपको टॉपिक पढ़ना चाहिए, which is this, is disability a social construct? Now in your learning aid you will find a picture. I found it on Google and I think it's good enough for your understanding. Okay, on page number 4 you will find, and in the center you will see that they have made a circular kind of thing like a world, right? And they are saying the problem is not the disabled person, the problem is the disabling world. है कि नहीं? This is, see the chart there, the picture. The problem is disabling world and not the person as such. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting? Now think like this. Suppose a disabled person has to come to this class and teach. Can he do that? What if the person has no legs, but he is a wonderful teacher? Like he is the best in the business, okay? He's the best. He's like 1000 times better than me or 100,000 times better than me. But can he just come to this class and teach? Why? What's the problem? In access, no access? Why? We have the stairs. What's wrong? We have the stairs. We can come, na? He can't come because there is no lift, right? So even though he is best in the business, even though his mind is best, he can only teach you through online medium because he cannot come here. He can come with Zoom classes. All right? Okay. What if, so I will give you examples to which you can relate. Have you seen these new DTC bus stops? Or have you seen the old one? Or the old DTC buses? पुरानी DTC buses किस किस को याद है? How many of you have been living in Delhi for the past 20 years? 15 years? No. अभी पुरानी बसें आप में से किसी को पता है कि पुरानी बसें दिखती कैसी थी? No. Have you not seen that old khadkhad buses of steel kind of frame, a bit green and silver? Huh? Okay, नहीं याद है तुम लोगों को. So see, this was the DTC bus stand just few years back. So it used to be like this. So there will be one rod like this, there will be another rod like this, and there will be one more rod like this. ठीक है? So you can sit here and you can have your legs here. There was no sitting like a chair. अभी तो मेट्रो की तरह तुमको दिखता है ना बैठने की जगह. It was not like the DTC bus stand was not like this. And then you will not have any pavement as such. ठीक है, वो अचानक से you just walk and you find that there is a bus stand like this. It will be like this, and then there will be lot of trees sprouting up. कहीं people का पेड़ ऊपर से उग रहा है, anytime it can fall. And the DTC bus was also like this. So there is a big bus. Suppose this is the entry to the bus. There is a big tire here. The bus is like this, is a framework. There are stairs, and then only you can enter the bus. Now just imagine the new DTC buses. Have you seen the new DTC buses? The purple bus or the maroon color bus, the orange bus, the green bus, the low floor buses, right? And have you seen the DTC bus stand? If you see carefully, the bus stand and the DTC bus, their elevation from the ground is of the same level. So suppose you are standing on this podium and there is a bus stop and the bus will just come here, right here. So the person who is disabled, they don't need to climb the stairs. They can just enter the bus easily, right? Not only this, suppose the person is blind, he cannot see, okay, even though they may have a vision of the future, but he cannot see, and that person wants to board the bus. So he can also go to the bus stand. Have you seen those yellow plates on the pavements? Like if you observe carefully, just go office से अपनी क्लास से नीचे उतर के just walk, and you will find that on the roads there are something in yellow color, something like this, yellow plates like tiles. So there are tiles like this, right? There are different tiles, but there will be a yellow kind of tiles all throughout the pavement, the footpath. So this is actually for the people who are blind, so that they can follow the straight path. And suppose there is a turn somewhere, on that turn, you won't find this kind of plating. You will find circles, small, small circles. So the person who is blind, na, when he reaches that place, so he can sense it from his legs. Okay, it's not straight, so there is a turn here. So the person turns. Or let's imagine, I think you must be using Delhi Metro. On Delhi Metro platforms, you will see the same thing. There is a yellow plate, right? If you enter the DTC bus, there is one thing just right next to the emergency door. You will find a seat belt, but there is no seat. That is for the wheelchair person. So that they can have in the last coach of Delhi Metro, you will find the same thing. There is a big rod, a big space. Often we all abled person, we just go there and stand like this as if it's our property or daddy's capital, but that is meant for the disabled population, right? So this change in the environment. Now imagine, had this not been the case, a disabled person won't be able to board the bus on time. A disabled person won't be able to reach the metro on time. Then they won't be able to reach the office on time. And due to this kind of structure, they won't be able to enter the class and teach, right? Not only this, in your colleges, you all have studied from some college. If you visit any big seminar hall or part of the college campus, you will see that there are elevated pavements now. There is a stair and there is an elevated pavement. As usual, the people who are abled, they just take the elevated pavement route. उनको आसान लगता है. But that is for the disabled person. They can also enter the premises. And those who are able, they must use the stairs. But we are like, it's our daddy's capital. बन गया तो हमारे लिए बना है. So this is the idea here. That what you think about disability, it's not a result of the physical ailment alone. Rather, the world is also disabling. And if you want to change the condition or provide social justice to the person with disabilities, you cannot just deal this as a medical framework. Rather, you have to change this disabling word itself. And this is what Indian government has been doing, and this is what the United Nations has persistently emphasizing upon, that you need to change the disabling word. So for example, think about those. The first option is the buildings are badly designed, right? How the world is disabling? What is the first thing present in your picture? The buildings are badly designed. So you don't need to go far away, right? Even the classroom of Prospect IAS, it's badly designed, isn't it? I don't know whether you have seen these things or not. How many of you have actually gone to your college department staff room or classrooms? पढ़ते हो जाके कॉलेज में, मतलब पढ़ते हो कि बस जाते हो? Do on the classroom door, of course a number is mentioned, but you will see now that they are also mentioning the name of the classroom or the number of the classroom in the Braille script. Have you observed it, or has it not happened yet? I think in your Kurukshetra University, right? Which university? Right? It must be there. Vanstali has it. I have been there. Delhi University has it. No. So what I'm trying to suggest here is that the buildings are badly designed means that there is no elevation. Ramp aa gaya hai. There is a ramp. There are now lifts, right? But more than that, you will also find. So for example, in your library perhaps, there must be a room where the disabled people can hear the book, right? So they can hear it. Or think like this, if you visit any reputed journal, right? Any reputed journal, you will find this tab there, click here to listen to this article. So the person who cannot read, if he is not deaf also, that person can just click there to listen to the article. Or for example, think about your apps like Uber and Ola. They have this voice, right? Although she speaks very fast, but the voice is very fast. Sometimes it is not even audible what they are trying to make sense of. But the apps are also made to make sure that text to speech translation is going on. In the smartphone you will find it. So buildings are badly designed, so we need to change it. Similarly, there are stairs, not ramps, no lifts, right? So we need ramps and lifts. Special schools. Now this is the problem. If you create special schools only, that is also a problem, because then the participation won't happen in the same way. We don't need segregation. We need amalgamation. Then you for few sign language interpreters. Now, how many of you actually find people who are also learning sign language? You won't find it. By the way, there is another news here in the current affairs. I think it happened last year. There is perhaps just one Hindi film industry actor whose name has received a sign language. Can you guess the person's name? He is the best actor, considered as the kind of emperor of Hindi film industry. The kind of Badshah kind of person. Who is the, yeah. So if you do this now, it means you are saying Shah Rukh Khan in the sign language. Just do this. Okay, what it means? 2 times tap by 2 fingers is Shah Rukh Khan. So sign language, few sign language interpreters. Discrimination, inaccessible transport, no parking places, isolated families, and poor job prospects. So suppose if you visit the banks now, you will find that the banks have this policy, or now the government has made this policy after the passage of the Right of Person with Disability Act 2016, that at least 5% jobs should be there for the disabled population. So when you visit a bank, if you observe it carefully for your UPSC preparation, you will find a disabled person. Often the person is blind. They are sitting somewhere and they are performing in the bank. But why I am saying that is not enough? Because in the disabling world scenario, they are not given any bigger task. Rather, what is the job of that person who is blind in the bank? A person will go to him and say, give me the inquiry form. And that person will have 3 forms in front of her or him. And they will just pinpoint, okay, second number is inquiry form, first number is check form, the third number is ATM form, fine. You want inquiry form? फाड़ा उसको दे दिया. So even when you have these people that give them jobs, they are not granted with larger opportunities. So we come with this mindset that the person who is disabled has also less mind. He cannot think properly, he cannot talk properly, right? So I think perhaps there was a very good famous epic writer in India who was blind. Have you heard this name? Surdas, right? So perhaps Surdas needs to be born again to make the able population understand, hey, you're doing wrong with me, right? So the problem is not just the disabled person, the problem is equally what is known as the disabling world. Alright? इतना समझ में आ गया? चलो. So write a practice question और ये आपको करके आना है, ठीक है? I want it tomorrow. No, I won't be meeting you tomorrow perhaps. On Sunday I will meet you all. So write this question. Mere emphasis on medical conditioning is not enough. Medical conditioning is not enough to ameliorate, ameliorate, ameliorate the condition of the disabled population. Full stop. Rather, the change in disabling world is necessary. Rather, the change in disabling world is necessary. Full stop. Examine. 150 words, try to write this, okay? Now, let's look at certain rights of the disabled. Let's look at the next part. Rights of the disabled. Now see, if you read the Indian Constitution, it appears as if the Constitution has nothing to say about disability. It appears like that. So for example, is there any part in the Constitution that deals with disability? The answer is no. Is there any specific article that deals with disability? The answer will be no. No, we don't find any specific article which categorically mentions something about the disabled population. But when you read Article 15, precisely, and there are few more articles, but Article 15 is part of fundamental rights, so that's far better example here. When you read Article 15, it contains the word disability. Now you can understand that the framers of the Indian Constitution did not consider disability as a result of physical ailment alone. Rather, they consider disability as a social problem. So for example, in your learning aid, you will find that I have mentioned this in your aid. Now, if you read Article 15, it's about principle of non-discrimination, yes or no? Right? It is part of right to equality, yes or no? Now see what Article 15 is saying. Article 15 clause 2. No citizen on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them be subject to any disability, liability, restriction or condition with regard to etc. etc. So even Article 15(2) mentions that as far as the territory of India is concerned, and precisely within India the citizens are concerned, no citizen shall be subject to any kind of disability, isn't it? This is what the article is mentioning. But this in itself is not enough, because the article is not at all explaining what it means by disability, right? But perhaps when you go through the Constituent Assembly debates, it is categorically mentioning that even though if you are imposing certain kind of disability to any individual, whether it's a woman or a man, whether it's a minority or a majority, whether it's a able or a handicapped person, if you are subjecting them to disability, you are actually leading to violation of a fundamental right. But the problem here is that this article is not precisely focused on the disabled population. It is only focusing on the word called disability. That is why whenever you think about Indian constitution, we can say that yes, all the fundamental rights are available to the disabled population. But there is no specific enumeration of rights for disabled population as such. But is constitution a dead document or is constitution a living document? Which option would you choose? It's a living document. Constitution develops over time, right? So we can give this much space to the framers that okay fine, they were not that much far-sighted in their approach. Perhaps they lost this thing, okay fine, we need to have one more article for disabled population, etc. etc. But this convention by the UN, India signed this convention, right? And when you read this convention, the old one, the new one is of course far ahead of the old convention, but the old convention maintains certain rights which should be given to the disabled people. And those rights I have enumerated in your learning aid. So for example, see the first right, equality in socio-economic and cultural rights. So the first right that a disabled person has is about right to equality. And what it means? Social equality, second, cultural equality, and third, tell me, social, cultural and economic. See, there is a third one, economic equality, right? So for example, what it means, what is social equality and cultural equality? What's the difference between society and culture? Social equality simple means that every person is equal and they should be treated equally. There should be no discrimination. Cultural means that they should be able to take part in the cultural activities of the community, right? So for example, think like some kind of celebration. Aaj koi Jayanti bhi hai na? There is there is Hanuman Jayanti today, right? So in my village we don't celebrate Hanuman Jayanti today. Here we celebrated Hanuman Jayanti, but in my village it's a different day. But anyways, so Hanuman Jayanti, right? There is some Ram Leela going on. We need to have a disabled person performing it, isn't it? Have you ever seen a disabled person performing any cultural event in your life? Nahi pata hai? Have you ever came across a news that disabled people are actually performing? No? You have not? Huh? In your college you must have seen. So what was the performance? Yeah. Okay, so listen, let me tell you. I was lucky. So I visited this World Trade Fair. You know, there is a trade fair. And in that trade fair, I think it used to happen at Pragati Maidan those days. I don't know where it happens today. Yeah, there was a big fair, and I think I was in 11th standard perhaps. So I went there, and there was an amphitheater, a big theater kind of thing. So I just entered that place. It was free. And it was written that you will also get some refreshments. So you know, as usual, the student, the kids, khane ko milega. We're like, chalna AC and khane ko milega. So AC and food is like the best deal you can have. You're heating and you're having a air condition. And then when we entered, me and all my friends, we were like, okay, fine, we can just enter this place. But then we came to know it's a performance by the disabled people. I can tell you honestly, even I thought what they will do. Right? Because I was not, I was not studying enough. My mind was small. I was nuthead in my brain. I only thought that only able people can perform. And then I saw that they were going to perform the war of Mahabharat in 1 hour. That excited me. I was like, no, let me see what they're going to do. And all of them were on wheelchair. There were at least 18 participants. The 18 participants were performing on wheelchair. And they mesmerized the entire audience by the movement of the wheelchair. And they also formed bow and arrow and the movement of the horse and the chariot. So for example, the person, just the first person in the wheelchair, right? He's standing right next. Then there is one more, one more, one more. So there are 4 people, and behind 4 there are 8 people, right? 12 people together, and now they are moving like a horse. And behind them there is one person who is on the wheelchair, and he is having this strong pole in his arms, so he's standing like Krishna. And then there is a person behind him who is performing like Arjun, that I am going to apply this bow and arrow and I am going to kill all of you. And they perform for 1 hour. Not only this, there is a specific event which happened in Delhi University. I was part of Delhi University as assistant professor, and we actually, perhaps we became the first college in the university to celebrate the disabled sports meet. And we made this, Ankur was a festival which happened in the Tyagaraja Stadium, and all across India participants came. And the chief guests were not some ordinary abled human beings. The chief guests were people who performed cricket, disabled cricket team captain came, right? So disabled cricket means, so there is a ball, the ball has a certain ring in it, so you can hear it, and then you can hit the sixer, etc. And the interesting part was that when I looked at that cultural space, and I was actually mentioning the names, you know what were the name of the participants? Very bad names. So there was a name like Ram Bharose. So a person who is born disabled, the cultural atmosphere in India is, iska naam kya rakh diya aapne? Ram Bharose. What is meaning of Ram Bharose? Only God can take care of him, because society won't. His life is ruined. He is disabled. He cannot do anything. And that person actually performed shot put. You know what is shot put? You have a heavy ball here. He had a disability in his leg. So he was standing with one of the Baisakhi like this, support like this, and he was the winner, by the way. So his arms were very powerful. So disabled people want to participate in the cultural events. The problem is the disabling world, and that is why if we don't have athletic meet for them, we can never see how much talented they are. If we don't have cultural meet for them, we can never see how much talented they are, how much they can perform, right? They can perform the Mahabharata in 1 hour. Isn't it? So that is how you have to understand this right. Any question, any doubt so far? Samajh mein aa raha hai? Is it completely coming? Alright. Next one, the right to work. Okay. Not just equality, the disabled population also has the right to work. So job prospects must be open for them. Like for example, have you ever met a disabled person who is an IAS officer? Have you ever heard about this? Work on equal basis with others. Any disabled person who is an IAS officer? No? Okay, so there is a young lady who has actually quit her job now because she was not able to cope up. She was facing problems. And there is one more woman who was blind, but she qualified the civil services. But I think it also came in news. There was a disabled woman, I think here she was facing dwarfism, and she also qualified the civil services examination. So that is what they are saying. We also have the equal right to work. But the point is, everywhere you will find that the demand is equal basis. So don't give us job which is considered as a charity. Okay, if I'm coming as a teacher, better create conditions that can help me to teach properly. If I'm coming as a teacher, don't give me a class where there are no students. Like for example, in the Delhi University, you have the discipline specific elective courses, and then you have generic elective courses, and then you have also major courses, right? So in some of the generic elective papers, there are only 2 or 3 students. isn't it? And in some generic elective paper, there are 100 students, right? So what happens in the atmosphere of the college premises? The disabled teacher is often allotted the class which has less students. Why? Because we think that they cannot teach well. The student will face the problem. We don't think about providing them with dosimeter. Dosimeter is an equipment through which a disabled teacher can make PowerPoint presentations that can be put on the screen and everything can be done properly. So we don't think about that. What we are thinking, acha, isko job dena? Yeah. There is a law, yeah. Let's give him a job, but allot him a very small class. But not only this, suppose there is a person who is disabled and he wants to pursue research. That person is often allotted a supervisor of the college, not the department. This also happens. Or suppose you have to provide a comment. There is always this idea of seeing that person from this pity. Arey, itna likh diya bahut hai, right? Good argument, good answer. And the disabled person is saying, no, tell me more, I can do more. Arey, tum kaise karoge? Itna kar diya bahut hai. No, this pity feeling. And I was a very brutal teacher, I would say. I remember a disabled student in my class who was blind. He submitted an assignment to me. And that assignment was, of course, written by some other person. So when he submitted that assignment, I said, how could you write? You cannot see. How come you are writing straight lines and sentences? He said, my friend has written it for me. I said, did you dictate? He said, yes, but he said he can write it for me. I said, read your assignment. The question was the political and technological impact of globalization on India. And by the way, this question was asked in some way by the UPSC as well that year. And the person had written is something like this. He provided definition of globalization 5 times. In 5 pages, the assignment was complete and there was no mentioning of political and technological dimensions. And then I said, what have you done? How will you improve? You know what that guy told me? He said, sir, give me 3 days. I will write the assignment on my own in Braille. He came after 3 days with a Braille script assignment. And then I said, dear friend, I am not able to read the Braille. How will I check it? He said, sir, I will read in front of the class. In my life, I have never seen an answer like that. That was the best answer on technological and political dimensions of globalization, written by a blind person in the Braille script, and he read it for me. That is how you have to give opportunity, right? So if you are giving them social, economic, cultural opportunity, give it on equal basis. If you are giving them work opportunity, give it on equal basis. If you are giving them educational opportunities, give it on equal basis. So you should not try to, feeling of pity. It's not going to work for them. Rather, if our agenda is inclusion, inclusion cannot go with the feeling of pity. Inclusion is not equal to accommodation. There is a difference. Inclusion means equal basis, equal participation, equal engagement with the larger community. Alright? And then definitely right to liberty, right to equality, all these rights will come. So write a practice question. You have to write it from your learning aid. Write the question like this. What are the different rights of the persons with disabilities? What are the different rights of the persons with disabilities as per the convention, on rights of person with disabilities, as per the convention on rights of persons with disabilities, question mark, and write the next part of the question. Why this document emphasizes on fulfillment of rights, why this document emphasizes on fulfillment of rights on equal basis, fulfillment of rights on equal basis, full stop. So you have to write this in 150 words, okay? Short, precise answer. लिख लोगे? ठीक है, समझ में आ गई ये बात भी? ब्रेक चाहिए? ओके, 5 मिनट्स का ब्रेक. शक्ल देख के पता लग जाता है कि अब ऊपर जा रहा है. ठीक है, हो गया? फ्रेश हो गया माइंड? हाँ, कैन वी स्टार्ट अहेड? हाँ, चल. Acha, by the way, you will also have lot of facts and screenshots of data in this aid by the census 2011. Now, why I have done that is to make all of you understand what kind of problem we are facing, right? So there is lot of data there. No need to mug it up. Just look at the data and you will understand. I will also tell how to read this these screenshots from the census. It's a census by the government of India. It's a census 2011, the last census, which had this idea of disabled population. And you will understand the ambit of the problem we are facing. All right, let's move forward. So the next part is, of course, some important inputs on the UN Convention. Now, of course, 2007, you have to remember, India signed it. 2008, it became operational. And this convention is perhaps the milestone in enhancing and furthering the rights of persons with disability. Had it not been the case, then perhaps this topic would not have been important. And interesting part is that if you read the law in India, the first page of the law has a dealing on objectives, right? What is the objective of this law? And one of the primary objective is to fulfill the demands of the convention. So the convention we are going to go through, it's actually the basis in the way law has been framed in India, right? And the same law on which UPSC has asked questions in the pre-examination as well as the main examination. And there is a possibility that in the near future, this topic is going to remain relevant. So in the near future also, UPSC might ask some questions from this topic, and you have to write a good answer there, है ना? उसको एकदम अच्छे से लिख के आना है. Now, as you can see that the learning aid is very vast, है ना? It's a long aid. But my entire agenda behind this aid was to provide you with as much input as possible. But the best part that you can understand is how they have tried to define certain words. So for example, if you look at the convention, what are the major objectives of the convention? Number one, to promote the full and equal enjoyment of all human rights and fundamental freedoms by all persons with disabilities. So the first objective of this convention is that all those rights which are available to a human being, let's say the human rights, all right? Second, all those fundamental freedoms, right? All those fundamental freedoms which are available to every human being. A disabled person must be provided with opportunity to fully enjoy or have full enjoyment of these rights. Is this not the first objective? So for example, there is a Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The disabled person must be provided opportunity to enjoy this right fully. Fully means simply what? In comparison to an abled person, there should be no difference. The way an able person enjoys these rights, the same way the disabled person must enjoy these rights. For example, if an able person has the right to walk, freely without any hurdle on a good road, on a good footpath, the same right must be provided to a person with disability. So we need yellow line or yellow streams on the road. We need low floor buses. We need low floor bus stand, so that the way able person is exercising this right, the same way a disabled person must exercise this right. What is the second objective? Look at it. To protect and ensure these rights. Mere provision that we are going to provide these rights is not enough. Rather, we must protect these rights and we must promote plus ensure these rights. And perhaps as far as the UN Convention is concerned, the best way for protection and promotion of these rights is to establish an administrative regime. ठीक है, इसका क्या आंसर होता है? How to promote or protect these rights? By establishing an administrative regime. And this requires what? A certain kind of law मेकिंग. आप जब तक कानून नहीं बनाएंगे तब तक यू कैन नॉट प्रोटेक्ट दीज राइट्स, यू कैन नॉट प्रमोट दीज राइट्स, यू कैन नॉट एंश्योर दीज राइट्स. ठीक है, ऑलराइट. एंड देन परहैप्स it should not be based on pity, rather the idea is that we must provide a disabled person with dignity. Interesting aspect of the UN convention is that they have tried to define certain words. So for example, in your learning aid you will find words like communication, right? You will find words like universal design, you will find words like language, discrimination on grounds of disability, etc., etc. You will find something called reasonable accommodation. Now UN convention has explained what it means. So for example, look at communication. It includes languages, text display, braille, tactile communication, large print, accessible multimedia as well as written, right? Audio, plain language, etc., etc. Now if you read carefully the National Education Policy, NEP, है ना, ये सुना है NEP के बारे में, right? और let's imagine if you visit any university now, things are working like that. You will find that there is a board, but also there is a PowerPoint projection available, है ना? And then if you read it, you will find that there are different prints available. So for example, if a disabled person goes to a library or to the college and he says, I need to have this book, could you please get it transformed in an audio form? The college has to do it, right? So there should be no barrier in communication. Think about the term language in the convention. Language includes spoken and other languages or sign languages and other forms of non-spoken languages. Nowadays, perhaps there is a course as well in which any person can learn the sign language, right? Or for example, if you remember, I mean, I don't know how, whether you remember it or not, I think DD News still have it, the DD News channel. So there used to be a show in which a anchor will come and she will recite the news. And then there will be a small box on the right side of the screen. And there will be a person who will be performing the sign language. I remember in my childhood, the leader is no more, but there was some news about Mulayam Singh Yadav, alright? And that person who was in the box, he did something like this. So we were like, okay, he is mentioning, so Mulayam is this, like, you know, Mulayam Singh, and then he was doing something, so he is trying to explain the news in the sign language form. Now that has become the norm now. So if you want to visit any place or any kind of larger state-based activity, there must be no discrimination on the basis of language as well. Now look at the third point. The third point is about discrimination on ground of disability. What it means? It means any distinction, exclusion or restriction. In your copy, you just write these words. If somebody is asking what is discrimination on grounds of disability, it has three major components. It means restriction, right? It means exclusion. You can also write the term isolation. It's not wrong to write here. So perhaps there is definitely going to be restriction in the life of the person. There is going to be exclusion from the larger community, as well as there is going to be distinction or isolation or expulsion, whatever word you want to choose, you can choose it. And this has the effect of denying the disabled person the full enjoyment of right in comparison to others. So this is how, so suppose there is a question, what do you understand by the term discrimination on the grounds of disability? You just have to write this paragraph and then add with certain other factors. Okay, ये बात समझ में आया? Clear हुआ? So this is how I have to, I mean, I don't want to invest more time in it, I just want to give you all a kind of major input. And the final word which I want to discuss in the class is about the universal design. Now see what has happened over the time. We have developed this idea of creating special schools for the disabled children. It's a good initiative. I will not say it's a bad initiative. Perhaps the best way to understand this, have you watched that movie Tare Zameen Par? Ishan Awasthi, right? Remember that boy, young boy, है ना? I remember that song, क्या है problem, क्यों है मेरा भेजा कम? I think all of you must be feeling that when you are preparing for UPSC. क्या है problem, क्यों मेरा भेजा कम? It's a very good song. You must always hear it again and again. But see, what is the universal design framework? Suppose you are creating a building or a government office. It must be universal, acceptable or universally accessible for every kind of individual in the political community, whether abled or disabled. Suppose we are writing a book. It must be universally accessible for every kind of reader. Either the reader can read by the eyes, or if the reader is blind, he relies upon a particular tool or some kind of equipment to access the knowledge. Or for example, if you are creating certain schools, do not segregate the disabled population. Try to develop the curriculum in such a manner that an abled student as well as a disabled student, and now I can use the term differently abled student, can sit together and learn. Of course it will be difficult, but think like this. What if we develop a curriculum in which we start giving examples the way a disabled person looks at the world and how to create a just society? Okay? So for example, we have to make the students learn something about how to develop the transport system in the New Delhi, right? Now a able person will write the essay differently and a disabled person will give better insights, isn't it? So see what happens if you segregate. The development of the able, so-called able population is not optimum. But when you bring all these factions together, the so-called abled people learn more because they understand, I have never thought about creating buildings that must have a ramp. I have never thought about creating classrooms that are accessible to every kind of teacher as well as every kind of student. So think like this, what if there is a disabled student? Can he reach the classroom easily? He cannot. He needs to have access, na? Equal access must be there. So perhaps the person who created this building did not think from the perspective of disabled population. What if the engineer of this building was a disabled person? They would have created some space through which a disabled individual can reach every floor of the classroom of this building, right? They could have created some lift maybe here or maybe there or perhaps anywhere so that they are able to reach the classroom. That's why we need not have a segregated design, rather we must have a universal design. So this is how the UN convention is trying to bring insight or put some kind of light on the problem that we are dealing with in the classroom today. Is it fine? Is it clear? Huh? And then most important for you is available on your learning aid page number 7. You see the article 3 of the convention deals with general principles. Make it a star. Usko star bana lo. ठीक है? The general principles, article 3 of the convention. The law in India which we have after 2016 is based on these general principles. When you read the law, the PWD Act, recent law, it is based on these general principles. So what is the first principle as far as the convention and the law in India is concerned? The respect for inherent dignity, comma, individual autonomy, including the freedom to make one's choices and independence of person. So the first principle behind this convention is based on the idea of dignity, comma, autonomy, right? There is an element of freedom as well as there is an element of independent choice, right? This is the first general principle. What is the second general principle? Non-discrimination. There should not be any discrimination by the state or the citizens between the abled person or the differently abled person or what is known as the disabled population. Third is full and effective participation and inclusion in society. What is the aim? The aim is inclusion plus participation. Also keep it writing in your copy. Or wait, I will make you write something from a paragraph base. What's the fourth general principle? Just remember it. Respect for differences and acceptance of persons. In other words, the disabilities are part of human diversity. So when you are looking at respecting the differences, you should not have this feeling of pity. Rather, you have to respect it and accept the disabled population as part of diverse way in which humans live, in which humans are born, or in which the human world must be designed. And perhaps if you think carefully, like look at it, the way we have constructed ramps, it has benefited not just the disabled population, it has benefited the able population as well. What do I mean by this? What if a person met with some accident, and for some time he was, before the accident he was able, but for some time he is walking with a broken leg. So the thing which was made for the disabled person, precisely, it becomes beneficial for the able person as well. Or let's say you have high fever, yet you need to reach some place. You can easily go there because of the way your world is not designed. What if the woman is going through the menstrual period? Instead of climbing the stairs, she can take the lift. But think if this was not the case, you would have faced more problems in accessing any kind of services to which you are actually legally entitled now. So you have to respect the disabled population as a diverse faction in the world, not as a burden, not as a thing or a object that deserves your pity. No, they don't need your pity. It's simply they have their rights to which they are legally entitled. What is the next one? The next one is equality of opportunity, right? So equality of opportunity, and precisely what I mean here is that there must be substantive equality. Okay? It should not be formal. It should not be formal. It should be substantive. And that is why after this convention, the idea of reservation for disabled population in certain jobs has emerged, and the government of India is actually following it. Then perhaps you will find the principle of equal access. The buildings or the design or the structure or the way society is governed or formed or the way society is being constructed, the parks are made, the buildings are constructed, the offices are built, the college is built, any kind of structure, it must be easily accessible to the disabled person as well. And finally, we must have equality between men and women, and we must have the respect for the evolving capacities of children with disabilities and respect for the right of children with disabilities, right? So there must be gender justice, so there must be equality between men and women, and we must have respect for the children, their capacities with disabilities. So that is why, think about it, Tare Zami Par, right? Had it not been a teacher like Amir Khan in that movie, है ना, that boy would have fallen into severe depression, है ना, पापा तो पागल था उसका, he was not able to understand what is the problem with his child, and then he's saying, are you saying my child is abnormal? He's like, no, I'm not saying that, I'm saying he's different, right? So even people considered it as a, you know, a kind of dent on their honor and respect. Oh, how could my child could be abnormal? इसको बॉर्नविटा खिलाओ, है ना, इसको इसको घास पे दौड़ाओ. How could you wake up in the morning? Wake up at 4 a.m. Then you can study well. Huh? This is how parents actually treat, right? Acha, you are a ziddi stubborn fellow. डंडा मार के ठंडा कर दूंगा. I had a teacher in my classroom, है ना, she used to say like this, कि मैं डंडा मार के ठंडा कर दूंगी. And we also had a disabled person with us, and he was not able to, you know, gather the things properly. I mean, like a kind of case of Tare Zami Par. And she used to beat him like hell. And he used to say, मेरे को समझ नहीं आ रहा. I was very, I mean, he was facing this mental problem. Later on, we came to know. And you all will be surprised to know, of course, I think he also got someone like Amir Khan, the film character, in his life. He is now an assistant professor. He completed his PhD. Very good PhD. He also worked on disability, and perhaps he is going to visit Yale next year for some research project. But see, had it been the other teacher, danda maar ke thanda kar dungi, we would have lost this kind of individual in our life. So we have to respect the potential of the children as well. All right? Okay? Write a question. Write a question, and then we try to write something on it. What are the general principles governing? What are the general principles governing the United Nations Convention? What are the general principles governing the United Nations Convention on rights of persons, on rights of persons with disability, with disabilities? Question mark. Enumerate. enumerate. So write the first point in this. Even though there was a convention in place, even though there was a convention in place, comma, the United Nations passed the convention on rights of persons, the convention on rights of persons with disabilities, to which India is a signatory, right? And then write, the convention has following general principles. The convention has following general principles mentioned in Article 3. The first sub-point, as we have just discussed, and it's also present in the aid, but I want it in your copies as well. Respect for inherent dignity, write fast, respect for inherent dignity, comma, individual autonomy, respect for inherent dignity, comma, individual autonomy, including the freedom or liberty, to make one's choices, and independence of individuals, full stop. Second sub-point, there should be no discrimination, or zero tolerance towards discrimination with disabled people. Third, the rights or fundamental freedoms must be protected. The rights or fundamental freedoms must be protected or promoted to ensure full and effective participation, comma, inclusion of disabled persons in the social, comma, economic, and cultural life of the community, full stop. Continue in the same point. It must not be limited to accommodation alone. Full stop. Right, next point. The convention mandates that disabled persons and their potentialities or capacities must be respected as part of human diversity. Next point, equality of opportunity in substantive manner. Must be ensured, and policies of affirmative action, comma, reservation in educational institutions, or jobs must be provided, full stop. Next point, the infrastructure and other spaces of human endeavors, the infrastructure and other spaces of human endeavor, ENDEAVOUR, human endeavor, must be made equally accessible, for disabled persons, right? Next point, there should be equality between men and women, because there should be equality between men and women because the disabled women are more marginalized in comparison to disabled men, and right, final point, there must be respect for the evolving capacities of children, with disabilities, and their identity must be celebrated, full stop. All right, ठीक है? So suppose any question comes, always remember the law in India is based on these general principles. So in your learning aid you have it in the short form, in your notes you have it in the elaborated form. All right, let's move forward. Now the next issue that we are going to discuss and take up now is, now let's enter India, and here we will take help of the census 2011, and then we enter the final phase of our lecture, which is the Act of 2016, plus some other policies which the government has taken up. But I think mere mentioning of the name of the policy is enough. We don't need to go into detail. But see, I have mentioned in your learning aid the question of disabled people. Does it matter for India? I have a heading like that, isn't it? See, on your page number 8 you will find it. You can skip this part which deals with what the state parties have to do. On page number 8, does it matter for India, rights of person with disabilities? And see, there is an enumeration of certain conventions or treaties to which India is a signatory. Now look at this. The first one, India is a signatory to the Declaration of the Full Participation and Equality of Persons with Disabilities in the Asian and Pacific region, right? We are a signatory to it. So it means that, of course, Article 13 will be interpreted in light of this signature. Look at the second one. India is also signatory to the Bivako Millennial Framework. It's also related to this Asian Pacific region for the matter. Not entirely, but in some way or the other. Then you have one more framework, Bivako plus 5. More than that, you also have this strategy for realizing the rights of persons with disability in the Asia and the Pacific. But most importantly, look at the Sustainable Development Goal. And in the Sustainable Development Goal, you will find that there is a pledge to leave no one behind, right? There is a pledge, है ना, कि किसी को भी नहीं छोड़ना है. And if you look at the social schema of Indian population, perhaps if we are not doing enough, then of course in our agenda to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal, we could fail, because this will leave the disabled population behind. So if somebody asks you a question, why does it matter for India? First reason is the legal reason, right? Because we are signatory to multiple conventions or international documents. So does it matter for India? You know, what's the Indian scene here? Is it important for India? Number one, yes, legally it's important. Why? Because we are signatory to multiple international conventions or treaties or regional conventions. What happened? Anything? क्या हुआ? ऊपर से गया? You did something? Huh? You are a naughty boy, I know that. I know it. स्टूडेंट का शक्ल देख के पकड़ा. And you also look like one of my friends. I will not take his name. The first time I saw you, I thought you are his younger brother. I actually called him. I said, "Do you have a younger brother named Sunny?" He said, "नहीं नहीं, मैं ही हूँ आखिरी." So I was like, "What do you mean?" बोला, "मैं ही हूँ, मेरे बाद कोई नहीं है. Don't worry." So I actually Googled. I mean, I was like, not Google, but I called my friends. I mean, like, इसका ये शक्ल देखा मैंने इसको. And then one day I saw him near this big mall in Kamla Nagar. He doesn't know it. I saw him because I was doing some work there, and I saw him walking like this. You know, do you have some place there? है ना? Yeah, the mall, and you were walking like this. He had his own swag, and he was walking. I again thought it's the same guy. I mean, he's my friend's brother. I called him again. तो सच बोल रहा है ना? बोला हाँ एकदम मेरे बाद कोई नहीं है. So I said okay fine. He was a very naughty fellow in the classroom. He's a civil servant now, but पता नहीं कहाँ posted है. I don't talk much ना because once your friends get पहले उसको पढ़ाता था फिर वो अधिकारी बन गया in that sense. So whenever a student or a friend gets qualified, I also maintain some distance because if I don't maintain the distance, my teaching will suffer. Then I will start doing this so-called ostentatious celebration in the classroom. Oh, I'm the best, I can do that. No, and teaching suffers. But yeah, I remember his face. And the way you are sitting in the classroom, I always recall my friend. So कभी मेरे मुंह से अक्षय ना निकल जाए. सन्नी की जगह अक्षय बैठो चुपचाप. Anyways. So this is one of the institutional reasons. The second is of course some kind of history, but the most important factor for your class is that you must go through the census of 2011. How this census has tried to define it. See what they have done. The census had almost 8 types of disability as a marker. Okay? The first one is vision. Okay. Now look at the census 2011. And now we will go through some kind of data. So what are the different ways in which disability has been defined in the census? The first one is vision, right? Can you see the table? What's the second one? After vision, hearing. Then you will have speech. Then you will have locomotion, right? So there is hearing. Then we have speech. Then we have locomotion. What's next one? Mental retardedness. Then of course we have mental illness, yes or no? Then we have other. And then after that you will have multiple disabilities. In this also you will have this idea of multiple disabilities. Now see, I don't want to go into the details of what it means. So I have already mentioned that in the aid. I will just explain 1 or 2 points. So for example, which is most difficult for you to understand? Which kind of disability? Tell me that and I'll explain that. Can you make the difference between mental retardedness and mental illness? Okay, let's go for that only. See, or let's look at the locomotion. Then you will understand the first. So suppose locomotion is not having both arms or legs. पहला condition क्या है? दोनों हाथ नहीं है, दोनों पैर नहीं है. Is paralyzed and unable to move, but he can crawl. अपने आप को इसे खींच सकते हैं. Paralyzed है, is not able to move, but he can crawl. Third is able to walk with aid of a walking aid. ठीक है, बैसाखी type something. Have acute or permanent joint or muscle problems that result in limited range of motion. So perhaps there is this high degree of muscle problem. Then look at it. Have lost all fingers or toes or a thumb. Right? You can also think. I mean, thumb is important, na? Remember a thumb? What's the problem if you don't have a thumb? Any legendary name? Eklavya, hai na? So if you lose a thumb, you cannot become a Arjun. You will remain Eklavya, hai na? You will only have. So this is the way in which they have tried to explain it. Now look at this mental retardation and mental illness. Often people are unable to understand the difference between these two. So if you think about mental retardation, what has the census explained? It means lack of understanding in comparison to their own age group. Have you ever seen a boy कि ये थोड़ा सा सुस्त है? This boy is a bit slow. He understands things late. And sometimes in the parlance, you will find this derogatory term like he is a tube light. You understand what is meaning of tube light? Book. बाद में चलता है, right? This is how people make fun, na? And I mean, this is how we have been trained, right? I'm not saying that you people are wrong or ethically bad. I will say that if you have done it in your past, perhaps you were not aware how it feels. Just imagine what if you become in the near future, and I start calling in the classroom, hey, you tube light, where is your answer? It will come after 7 days in comparison to the normal person, right? This is how people actually define, and people make fun of mental retardation. So in the parlance, they call it tube light. This is how tube light isko bolte hai na. Or sometimes you will find this term called, again a very bad word to, I'm just using it for explaining it, like thas buddhi. You know, buddhi just is thas, ruk gaya hai na, mand buddhi. There is one word which is common in my village area is botal. कि ये इंसान नहीं है, बोतल है, इसका दिमाग बोतल है, right? So that is mental retardation. Or for example, is unable to communicate his needs in comparison to other in his age group. So for example, if you think about a small kid and they are very vocal, I need water, and there is another boy or a girl and she's like or he's like, oh yeah, I will say after some time, or it takes a long time, so you will call it mental retardation. But when it comes to mental illness, see what mental illness is taking medications or other treatments for mental illness displays unnecessary and excessive concern. So I think when UPSC exam is going to come nearby, all of you will suffer from this problem, displaying unnecessary and excessive concern. Displays repetitive behavior or thoughts, displays frequent changes of mood. Mood swing समझते हो? अब कितने लोग तुम लोग ऐसे हो जिसको ये प्रॉब्लम है? हाई लेवल पे किसी को नहीं है ना? मूड स्विंग नहीं होता तुम लोगों का ना? चलो, थैंक गॉड. अदरवाइज यू विल फाइंड मेनी पीपल हु आर लाइक अभी ऑफ, अभी 5 मिनट बाद ऑन, है ना? दैट काइंड ऑफ प्रॉब्लम दे हैव. But I'm just making it light because it's a very difficult, sensitive matter. So light matters are light way of explaining things shows respect as well. So when you think about mental illness, we are referring to a medical condition that requires treatment. And when you think about mental retardness, we are referring to this mental development or psychological development of the human mind, which is less in comparison to an ordinary human, which is perhaps better. So these are majorly the 8 varieties or 8 types in which the census of 2011 tried to give us some data about condition of disabled people in India. And then in next few pages of your learning aid, I have mentioned certain charts from the census 2011 so that we are able to understand what kind of problem we are facing and how the law in India is going to address it, or perhaps what kind of policies are necessary to address this concern. So for example, look at it. According to the 2011 census, out of a population of 121 crore, about 2.68 crore persons are disabled, which is at least 2.21% of the entire population. So if you think about 2011, almost 2.21% of India's population is disabled. So it's not a less amount, huh? It's actually too much. Not only this, of the disabled population, 56% are males, whereas 44% are females. So there is a gender composition as well. In this, 56% are male, whereas around 44% are female. If you move further, you will find that the majority of the disabled population lives in rural areas. So almost 69%. In this, around 69% they live in rural areas, which means that if we are thinking about framing a policy to further or to enhance the condition of disabled population, perhaps we need to focus more on the rural area instead of urban area. See what happens when you go through data, na, your answer becomes far better because you are able to understand the problem. So now suppose UPSC asks a question, a very difficult question. Disability in India is majorly a rural concern. Do you agree? So you can just say ki we agree to some extent, and then you can say, yeah, almost 69% as per the 2011 census, they live in the rural area. So of course, what is a rural area? A rural area is directly in opposition to the urban area. It means there will be less hospitals, there will be less good schools, there will be less job opportunities, there will be less industrialization, and perhaps the rural area there is more inequality. Majority of people are still dependent upon subsistence. They are dependent upon government schemes for day-to-day needs. We need to create more universally designed curriculum framework of school there. So rural concern becomes paramount in comparison to the urban concern. Not only this, look at it. More than that, during 2001 to 2011, there was an increase in the number of persons with disabilities in both rural and urban areas, and also between men and women. Now this is a concern of health as well, public health. Now as far as the data is concerned, 2001 to 2011, there is an increase in the number of disabled population. So if we have to think in terms of data, between 2001 to 11, we are seeing a rise, and this rise is also available not just in share of population but also between male and female. So both male and female are seeing a rise in the disabled population. Now when you will read something on the child marriage, you will come to know that when a girl is married and she is forced to undergo sexual relation and pregnancy, and when she delivers a child, there is a high risk of the children who is going to get born being disabled. So it's a question which is connected. Second is, if you are not having a good diet during the pregnancy period, there is a chance that there must be some kind of problem with the children. So it's a question of nutrition as well, right? Not only this, there was a news report, I think of December last year, that perhaps in England as well as parts of India, they have found microplastic content in the mind of a baby inside the womb. So we are also seeing the question of air pollution or the kind of development we are having. So this trend or this rising trend is showing many things, that we need to work on public health system, that we need to work on the pollution, that we need to take care of the problems like child marriage, and then we need to take care of the early pregnancy problem as well, which means we need to increase our capacity of health care. See what happens when UPSC asks you analytical question, they expect this kind of understanding from you, and this kind of understanding develops from the data. Alright, so this is clear. Now let's look at some of the data. Look at the community base. Look at this picture, or this table here. If you think from the perspective of caste, total population 2.21%, right? But in this also, if you look at this 2.21% only, scheduled caste have 2.45 percentage of disabled population. Scheduled tribe has 2.05 and other have maximum 2.18 at maximum. So it means in the caste consideration, this problem also has caste nature to it, right? Or this problem also has a tribal nature to it. So majority of people perhaps are coming from the background of scheduled caste. So if we want to take care of the question of disability, we cannot address this question without merging it with the question of caste. So we have to bring that factor again as well. Not only this, look at the type of disability in India. Just flip the page now. See what the chart on the page number 11 has to teach us. 20% of person with disability have locomotor disability. What is the maximum one? Locomotor disability. Next one, 19% are facing visually or visual impairment. Another 19% are facing hearing impairment, and then 8% suffer from multiple disability. So which factor or what we have to work majorly in? We have to work majorly in locomotor sector, hearing, visual, right? And then finally multiple disabilities. If you go further, this is the perhaps most disturbing one in my opinion. If you look at the age based data, the highest number of disabled population is between 10 to 19 years. Now just imagine, look at it, it's 46.2 lakh, okay? अब ये data आपको थोड़ा परेशान करेगा. Out of this 2.21%, maximum 10 to 19 years age group have 46 lakh, right? So let's say in 2011 they were 10 to 19 years old. Today is 2023. So we are talking about someone who is now 23 to add 13 here, 23 to 32, right? And we are also saying that we have the youngest population in the world, but out of that youngest population, around 46 lakh are disabled, isn't it? That's the data is showing, na? 2011, 10 to 19 years old, 46 lakh people. 2023, 23 to 32 years. That's how data will move on. So almost 46 lakh youth in India are facing the problem of disability, which is not at all good, because 16% of the disabled population in 2011 was 20 to 29 years, which means now people who are 30 to 39 year old, there are 16% as well. So we have to think carefully about these data as well. Now if you think carefully, now we move further. Not just this, now the next data I will just explain in just 1 or 2 or 3 statements. The first thing you will find is that many of them are not able to pursue school. So they are not able to attend schools, they are not attending the classes, they have to leave the school, or they are not able to attend the educational institutions. Rinki, page number 13. The second chart, the pie chart, you will find that almost 27% have never attended any educational institution. So in this 2.21%, almost 61, they have not attended, of the 5 to 19 year age group, they have not attended the school at all. And then you will find only 27% who are, or let's say only 61% who have attended at some level, and then other have not attended even after some time. Not only this, if you look at the gender differentiation, almost 57% of males and 43% of females, they age group between 5 to 19 years, they have not been attending school at all, right? Now look at the flip the page, you will find one more interesting data in the next page. The next page data is about the rural urban divide. So status of school attendance of disabled children 5 to 19 years by residents in India. So think about it, attending educational institution, the urban sphere 65% are able to attend, in the rural sphere only 60% are able to attend. Attending educational institutions earlier, who have done it before, 11% in the urban area, 12% in the rural area. And then finally those who have never attended, 24% in the urban area and 28% in the rural area. Not just this, if you move further and you come to page number 15, so male, what are the major reasons? And you will find that mental illness, multiple disability, speech movement and mental retardation. These are the 4 major areas because of which they are unable to attend the school or educational institution. So suppose you have to work, we have to work on ensuring mental retardation problems, how to rectify it, mental illness, speech problem and definitely movement related problems. Alright, come to page number 16. On page number 16 you will find what are the major economic activities in which disabled population is involved, and you will be shocked to see that the total disabled non-workers are almost 17.1 million. Now if you are a non-worker, it means number one, you are dependent upon someone else for your survival, and number two, the government or the nation is unable to benefit from your potentialities. Not just this, look at it, they are student, household duty, etc., etc. So people who have hearing disability, 32.5% of them are students. Now imagine how they will be studying in the school. Can you just imagine? Because I think our school framework is not that great enough to take care of the disabled students so far. Maybe some private institutions have it, but the government institutions are lacking the structural necessities required to enhance or further the educational pursuits of a disabled student. Look at this person who is not able to see, and see the major non-economic activity. They are dependent, they are doing household duties, they are pensioners, they are rentier, they are beggar or vagrants, or they are in some other category. Can you find any decent non-work activity here? Is it in the list? Like if people might say that his household duties are decent, but think about the situation where you name a disabled person as Ram Bharose, what kind of household duties they must be performing if they are disabled in our country? Not a good one, or maybe a very difficult one, and perhaps all the time they must be called by the name of a burden कि ये तो बोझ है ना, जब जाएगा चला क्यों नहीं जाता, why isn't she or he dying early, etc etc. And if she is a girl, oh she is a proper burden, इसका तो शादी भी नहीं होगा, है ना, that kind of thing. Flip the page, you will find one more thing. On page 17, you will find the share of disabled person in state and union territories to the total disabled persons in the country. Which is the state with the highest ratio of disabled persons? Uttar Pradesh, right? Move further, Maharashtra, Bihar, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, and even if you move further, like I think till Jharkhand, you will find there is a proper share, 2.87%. But perhaps maybe we have to focus more on states like Uttar Pradesh, more on states like Maharashtra, more on states like Bihar, more on states like Andhra Pradesh or West Bengal and Rajasthan, if we want to change the condition of people who are working as a or who are living as a disabled person, etc etc. So this was one or more data which I wanted to share with you. So is it a normal problem for India or is it a significant problem for India? Significant, right? So when you think about rights of persons with disabilities, we are not looking at a small share of the population. Rather, we are looking at the 2.21% of 121 crores. We are looking at a youth of 46 lakh, right? That's not a small number at all. And this was the major reason why the government of India, the parliament, passed a new law. We already had a law with us, but in the year 2016, they passed this new law based on these general principles. Now, there are different ways in which you can understand what this law is all about. It's, I think if you look at the PDF, it's almost 36 pages long. है ना, अब 36 पेज पढ़ोगे तो पागल हो जाओगे, isn't it? Majority of the content has remained the same. I mean, the kind of officer setup, special funds, let's say employment opportunities, reservation, etc etc. I have already mentioned that in your learning aid. But the most interesting aspect of the law is that it is divided under certain thematic themes or certain themes or or areas which are coming from rights. So for example, if you read this law, you will find this section like non-discrimination. You will find section like equality between men and women. You will find section like equal access. So whatever these general principles are, they have mentioned it in the first page, that this law has been framed to ensure that these general principles are applied in the Indian context to take care of the disabled population. Now the question remains why? And the part which I skipped was, it's present in the aid as well, you just need to have one statement on that. All those nation states who have signed the UN Convention, they are required to change their legal domain, administrative domain, structural domain as per the requirement of the convention. And if the convention is based on these principles, the law must be based on these principles, the administration must work on these principles, the structure, the buildings, the public spaces or even the private spaces, they must work on these principles. More than that, if the UN Convention is accepting a very broad definition of disability, the law must also accept a very broad definition of disability. And when you read the 2016 law, almost 21 kind of disability has been added to the list. So census had 8 types. This also majorly has, the larger part are just 5 or 6. But when you look at the sub points, it reaches a high tally of almost 20. So like look at it, if you look at it in learning aid, the first is physical disability, right? Number 1. What's the first sub point? Locomotor disability, right? Look at further, there are 5 ways in which, and you will find that there is something called mentioning of the acid attack victims. Can you see it? Earlier, can you find it in the 2011 census? No, we are not able to find it in detail. but acid attack victims also face disability, right? So if we are thinking about disability, we have to take care of the changing dimensions of social relations or the changing nature of social reality. So definitely leprosy cured person, cerebral palsy, which means with mental illness, dwarfism if someone is short in height, muscular dystrophy, the joint or muscular pains which we discussed, and acid attack victims. So this makes it the list of almost 7 kind of categories between 2 types. Move further, visual impairment has 2 categories, then speech and language disability, hearing disability, intellectual disability, which means specific learning disability or autism related disability. The person is not able to speak properly, not able to express what he wants properly. Then mental behavior, which is of course mental illness, just like the census, and disability caused due to chronic neurological condition such as multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease समझते हो? Any idea? वो देखा है जो स्किन पे अजीब सा हो जाता है? Yeah, that's majorly, and there is one more factor, but you don't need to go into detail because you are preparing for UPSC. So UPSC won't ask you much details, but if they ask you is it part of the law, the answer is yes. More than that, blood disorder, and then there are different medical conditions. Now the problem with this is, apart from the category of acid attack victims, perhaps every other category is majorly medically looked, isn't it? So even though we have this idea of social theory of disability, the law has to take care of medical conditions. More than that, look at it. This law has additional benefits for benchmark disabilities and those with high support needs. Any idea what is benchmark disability? So if you prepare for UPSC and you go with this notification, there is a term called people with benchmark disabilities. So for example, someone doesn't have a hand. Now he needs some support to write the answer. That is an example of benchmark disability. More than that, every children or every child with benchmark disability between the age group of 6 to 18 years shall have the right to free education. So Article 21A, right to free education is there. But for disabled children, they have specifically mentioned it in the law. They should not be charged for the education. More than that, 5% reservation of seats in the government and government aided higher education institutions, and also stress has been given to ensure accessibility in public buildings. ये तो आप लोगों ने अब समझ ही लिया. Nothing new is needed to be added here. And then 4% in government jobs, etc., etc. Finally, the act also goes for special responsibility of the district collector. There is a special authority to generate funds, and then there are other laws in place as well. So the major idea is that this law of 2016 actually enhances what has already been mentioned in the UN Convention on Disability or Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Is it fine? Okay. So data समझ में आ रहा है कैसे इसको करना है, right? Now write a final question. Disability is a major concern for India. Disability is a major concern for India. Question mark. What are the major steps taken by the government of India? What are the major steps taken by the government of India to ameliorate the condition of disabled? To ameliorate the condition of disabled? Question mark. Write the first. So for the next 10 minutes we write, and then this topic is over. ठीक है? क्या हो गया? फास्ट लग रहा है? हो गया सारा टॉपिक? यही तो था ना, इसमें और क्या पढ़ोगे तुम लोग? एक क्लास की बात थी. क्या हो गया? समझ में आ रहा है या लग रहा है भाग गया? क्लियर हो गया ना? पक्का कि झूठ बोल रहे हो? You can speak truth, of course, but never try to speak truth to power. But anyways, no, of course, always speak truth to power. Okay, well, let's write. Write the first point and start like this. India is a signatory. India is a signatory to UN Convention India is a signatory to UN Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, rights of persons with disabilities, as well as other regional treaties that aim to enhance the condition of disabled, full stop. Right, next point. Even though there was less emphasis on collecting data on disabled persons in some census exercises in the past, the census of 2011 collected data on 8 types of disability faced by persons in India. Vision, comma, hearing, comma, speech, comma, locomotion, vision, comma, hearing, comma, speech, comma, locomotion, comma, mental retardedness, comma, mental illness, and other type of disability. Full stop. Continue the same point. It also included the option of multiple disabilities. Full stop. Write the next point. The findings of census in brief are following. First subpoint. Around 2.21% of total population is disabled, in which 56% are male, while 44% are female. Full stop. Write the next point. Around 69% of disabled population lives in rural areas. Full stop. Write next point. The highest number of disabled population was within the age group of 10 to 19 years, comma, approximately 46 lakh. Right, next point. Majority of individuals aged 5 to 19 years are not able to pursue their education. Full stop. Continue the same point. Interestingly, the trend has remained same. Similar in both rural and urban areas. Full stop. Right, next point. majority of the disabled persons, majority of the disabled persons are engaged in non-work activities, comma, they are dependent on others, or beg to survive, full stop, and write the final sub point in this. Between 2001 to 2011, the number of disabled persons has increased, full stop. Write the next point. The sub points finished है ना, इसी में आपने सेंसस का एनालिसिस डाल दिया. Write the next point. The government of India passed the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, 2016 in line with the UN Convention, and it has put responsibility on the appropriate government, to take effective measures, for full and equal enjoyment, of the rights by disabled, full stop. Right, next point. The above mentioned act widens the scope of disability, and contains provision like additional benefits for persons with benchmark disabilities, additional benefits for persons with benchmark disabilities, comma, free education within bracket 6 to 18 years age group, comma, making buildings accessible, comma, provision of reservation, comma, guardianship by a district court or other authority, comma, establishment of grievance redressal agencies, or office of the commissioner, comma, creation of funds within bracket national and state, comma, and provision for penalty, in case of violation of this law, comma, trial by special courts, full stop. Right, next point. Many programs like राष्ट्रीय वायोश्री योजना, ये लिख लो बस, नाम ही काफी है, राष्ट्रीय वायोश्री योजना to provide physical aids and assisted living devices, okay, comma, schemes for implementation of Disabilities Act, schemes for implementation of Disabilities Act, comma, Mental Health Care Act, Mental Health Care Act, comma, Rehabilitation Council of India Act, Rehabilitation Council of India Act, comma, Accessible India Campaign, Accessible India Campaign are major efforts taken by the government in this regard, are major efforts taken by the government in this regard. Now write the last point. What needs to be done? What needs to be done? ठीक है, question mark. What needs to be done? Question mark. First sub point. Effective implementation of laws and policies. Effective implementation of laws and policies. Second point. Proper creation and allocation of funds. Proper creation and allocation of funds. Third point. Strict punishment or liability in case of corruption. Strict punishment or liability in case of corruption. Next point. More skill enhancement programs. More skill enhancement programs. Next point. Proper following of universal design. Proper following of universal design. Next point. Regular data collection. Regular data collection to ensure effective change in policy. To ensure effective change in policy. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट. बेटर हेल्थ केयर प्रोग्राम्स. बेटर हेल्थ केयर प्रोग्राम्स and initiatives with special focus on women, with special focus on women who are disabled and rural areas. Special focus on women who are disabled and rural areas. Next point. State-based policy making. State-based policy making. Etc. है ना, एज ग्रुप वाला तो हम लोग स्किल वाले में वो बात हो गई है कि स्किल वाला क्या है. नाउ होमवर्क फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू. अब जितने क्वेश्चंस आज हुए हैं, हाउ मेनी क्वेश्चंस? अराउंड 5. सो ऑल ऑफ यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू राइट 5 क्वेश्चंस ऑन योर ओन. Second question homework is, when you go back home, I want all of you to just go on the website of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. ठीक है? In that there is a department for disabled persons, Department of Disabled Population, right? Just go on that website and just try to scroll down and see how many laws, what kind of policies are initiated, and just maintain a list. That is enough for your examination. Alright? समझ में आ गया? So tomorrow is Friday. As per your schedule, I'll meet you all now on Sunday, right? बुरा लग रहा है? हैं? बुरा लग रहा है? कौन कौन नहीं आएगा पहले बताओ मुझको. नहीं आओगे तो मैं एकदम एक ही क्लास में 3 क्लास निपटा दूंगा ना. खैर, so on Sunday we will discuss the rights of the children, and let me just give you what we are going to discuss. We will discuss essentially laws like POXCO, POCS, okay, because I think that's a very important law for discussion, and in one class we get this right done, and then I will try to also add some parts of secularism in the class, because the next class on Tuesday, then no, on Monday it will become easy for us. Otherwise it will become too long class for you to get so much of data together. But rights of children, majorly POXCO is important, and child marriage, 2 topics we cover in one class, plus we also discuss something about religious rights, okay, so that for the Monday class we are well prepared. And on Tuesday you will have a holiday for revision. It's not a holiday for enjoyment, it's a holiday for revision, okay. So all the best. I see you all on Sunday. संडे हो या मंडे, रोज खाओ अंडे, है ना. चलो, तो संडे या मंडे रोज आओ क्लास. ऑल द बेस्ट.